studies since 1986 that looked very specifically about the impact of what Congress did then. What do these studies show? Well, 2000 report by the Center for Immigration Studies states, quote, INS estimates show that the 1986 amnesty almost certainly increased illegal immigration as the relatives of newly legalized illegals came to the United States to join their family members, close quote. Again, INS statistics, not some think tank on the conservative side, INS statistics show that even though 2.7 million illegal aliens were granted lawful citizenship through the amnesty program, and by the way, that was far more than anticipated, within just 10 years, a new illegal alien population had replaced all of those, and it had grown to 5 million. And that growth only continued. Again, that growth today has gone from 140,000 illegal aliens streaming across the border per year back then in 1986 to 700,000 per year today. That growth has been 3 million illegal aliens in the country going back to 1986 to at least 12 million today. Another study, 1992, 6 years after that past amnesty program, the Commission on Agricultural Workers issued a report to Congress. So a specific report to Congress that studied the effects again of the 1986 agricultural amnesty program. First, the Commission found that the number of workers amnestied under the bill had been severely underestimated. So the numbers that were talked about, in fact, the true numbers were well more than that. And second, the Commission found that the agricultural worker amnesty only exacerbated existing problems. Quote, 6 years after IRCA was signed into law, the problems within the system of agricultural labor continue to exist. In most areas, an increasing number of newly arriving, unauthorized workers compete for available jobs, reducing the number of work hours available to all harvest workers and contributing to lower annual earnings, close quote. Again, the bottom line is very clear. Same arguments back then as today. Let's do this once, the problem is solved forever. We'll really get tough with enforcement. We promise. Really. We mean it. And what happened? 140,000 per year increased to 700,000 per year. Problem of 3 million illegal aliens has increased to at least 12 million. So we really do need to study history and see what the impact of this amnesty program and this bill will be. This threat is particularly grave, and I think it's absolutely certain that this will exacerbate the problem for the following simple reason. In terms of border security, everyone on the floor of this body, everyone else agrees that true border security cannot and will not happen overnight. The best case, if we are really sincere about it, if we really follow up this debate with the adequate appropriations, the money, the manpower, the resources, the focus, the best case is that we'll get a handle on our border in several years, perhaps 2 to 3 years, absolute minimum. But of course, the other elements of this bill would be passed into law, would go into effect immediately. That is repeating the exact mistake of 1986. It would be one thing to consider an amnesty program down the road after we have acted on border security and proven that we have executed meaningful border security. I don't think I could be for it even in that circumstance, but that would be one thing. But what this bill does is something far different and even far more dangerous. What this bill does is put that program into effect now, immediately, move forward with that amnesty track immediately, even though everyone agrees, best case, we'll only have meaningful border security in several years. And so we establish the magnet to draw more illegal aliens into the country before anyone pretends that we have adequate border security or workplace security. So that's an even clearer reason that this is a big mistake and repeating the mistakes of the past, particularly in the era around 1986 on a much grander and therefore more troublesome scale. Another point I wanted to make is the overall numbers that these provisions will lead to, because I think there's been a lot of fuzzy math and a lot of lack of attention to detail on this question. And again, devil's in the details. Let's read this bill, let's look at this bill and understand the full consequences of this bill, including the amnesty program. The number folks toss around most commonly on the floor of the Senate, as well as in the wider debate around the country, is 12 million illegal aliens currently in this country. Most experts seem to think that's a pretty much minimum number. It could be significantly above that. But again, we need to look at the bill. We need to understand the details, because that is not the total number who may be eligible for citizenship. The bill is very liberal and very broad in granting this citizenship path to an extended definition of family members of these folks. And so, in fact, as a direct, immediate result of this bill, we could well have about 30 million folks on that citizenship path, getting on that path very quickly. And over an extended number of years, that number would be far larger. Estimates, for instance, by Robert Rector over a 20-year period after enactment of this underlying bill is that it would mean a minimum of 103 new folks gaining citizenship, possibly much higher. So again, devil's in the details. Let's look hard at the numbers. Let's add it up. We're not talking about 12 million. We're talking about 30 million immediately. We're talking about huge numbers, 100 million or more over 20 years. And finally, the argument that is most often put up against avoiding this sort of amnesty program is that we can't make felons of all of these millions of illegal aliens in the country. We can't round them up and deport them. It's impractical. It may not be a good idea even if we could do it. President Bush made this specific argument 2 nights ago. Many of my colleagues here on the Senate floor have made the same argument. But really, Madam President, the truth is that that is not the alternative. That's a straw man, an easy argument to push aside and defeat. That's not the practical alternative at all. The practical alternative to rushing toward an amnesty program is to do meaningful things with regard to enforcement and other measures in the country that on their own can decrease the illegal alien population in this country over time. Let me mention 6 things in particular. 1, secure the borders through Border Patrol agents, increase fencing, substantially increase detention space, and do that before we do anything else. Some provisions are in this bill, but it's not being done before we move on to other aspects of the bill. Number 2, implement strong and serious worksite enforcement measures, and again, do that before other aspects of the bill are implemented. Number 3, eliminate document fraud through the use of biometrics and immigration documents and secure Social Security cards. Number 4, reform existing laws to reduce the incentive to work illegally by providing the IRS with increased resources to investigate and sanction both employers and illegal aliens for submitting fraudulent tax returns, requiring the Social Security Administration to share information with DHS when no match letters are sent to employers, and barring illegal workers from counting work performed illegally toward Social Security. Number 5, encourage state and local law enforcement to enforce immigration laws themselves by giving them authority and by requiring the feds to reimburse them for expenses directly related to that enforcement, and enhancing coordination and information sharing between the state and local law enforcement and federal immigration authorities. And number 6, provide the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice with the necessary resources to perform their jobs. Madam President, these 6 things, without an amnesty program, would in fact lower the population of illegal aliens in this country over time. Why would it lower it? Because it would remove the incentives for those folks to stay here. It would remove the mechanisms by which they can successfully stay in this country and gain employment. So again, it's a straw man to talk about making all of these people felons. My amendment doesn't do that. We're not proposing that on the floor of the Senate. It's a straw man to talk about rounding up 12 million people around the country. It's a completely false argument to suggest that the only alternative to essentially amnesty is to have to do that and deport all 12 million of these people. The practical alternative, which we can absolutely do, is avoid amnesty while doing steps like these 6 things. And what that will do with real border security, with real workplace security, demanding absolute requirements that ensure that folks getting jobs are legal immigrants, not illegals. That is the practical alternative which over time can dramatically reduce the illegal population in the country. Madam President, I don't know of any single aspect of this bill before us on the floor of the Senate that has Americans more concerned than these amnesty provisions. It goes to the heart of this debate. It goes to the heart of Americans' concerns that once again, we're talking a good game about enforcement, but we're not demanding that it happen before considering other aspects of the bill. It goes to the heart of our experience in 1986 when that agricultural worker amnesty program clearly was a huge part of the failure of that attempt to get our hands around illegal immigration, was a huge part of the flow across our border ballooning from 170,000 per year to 700,000 per year, to the illegal population in our country skyrocketing from about 3 million to over 12 million. So this is an important amendment that goes to the heart of so many Americans' concerns about the bill. And that's reflected in town hall meetings and discussions I have all across Louisiana. It's also reflected in every major national public opinion poll on the subject. Over and over and over again, Americans make very clear, huge majority want enforcement. There is a legitimate debate about a temporary worker program, but huge majority have fundamental problems with these provisions, which they know, using common sense, particularly when they understand the details of the bill, amount to absolute amnesty. With that, Madam Chairman, I reserve the, Mr. Chairman, I reserve the balance of my time.